Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. Monday night, Halloween night, October 31st. Glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And that room's open. I did pop a couple links in there and what I want to talk about tonight. And just continuing on with an article from Help Guide. Just looking at child abuse, neglect, and all the different types of abuse. And Help Guide is a great website. I use that website a lot for information for myself as a survivor of child abuse, and it's a great resource. It's a not-for-profit organization, and they don't mind if people use their information at all. They hope people will just share the information there as long as you give them credit. So helpguide.org, great stuff, good information. And I also want to talk about an actual event coming up here in November from Talk. It's the second annual Talkathon, which is I've been really graciously asked to participate, which is amazing. So I'll just mention a little bit about that. But thanks everybody for tuning in. You know, I appreciate everybody who's listening to my shows, and like show after show after show. I just do so many shows. Like I've been on Blog Talk Radio almost 2 years. The middle of November will be 2 years, and I've done like over 800 shows. You know, I was really shooting for 1,000 shows, but I don't think I'll quite get there. It's unfortunate. I really wanted to. It was just a goal, and I thought, hey, 2 years I'll try to do 1,000 shows, and didn't quite make it. But you know, I appreciate everybody who's tuned into my shows. That's, you know, many of you have spent 2 years with me, and 2 years of my healing journey, and 2 years of my life. You know, and I really appreciate it because some I know who you are. You're my friends and whatnot, but many of you I don't know who you are, and I really appreciate you taking the time, like I said, because time is precious, and you know, it's hard to keep up with everybody's shows on Blog Talk Radio. There's so many shows I want to listen to, and I got myself too busy, and now I don't even have hardly time to tune into them, which is unfortunate because I hope I can listen to other people's shows too, right? There's some great stuff on here. And so, yeah, thanks a lot. You know, you have to listen to all my shows at your own discretion. I'm not a counselor or therapist. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows here on Blog Talk Radio, and I talk all about child abuse. Child abuse, you know, abuse of any type. Like, the subject is very, you know, hard to listen to. It's very traumatic. It's traumatic to have to survive, first of all, but hard to listen to as well. So, like, if you're not comfortable with the topics of abuse, then you need to listen at your own discretion. And if you think it might bother you, the topics of abuse of any type, you know, then you need to turn it off, right? You need to find something else to listen to because it is ultimately your discretion, your choice, right? So make the right choice for yourself, right? We all need to do that. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows because my shows are not for younger children, and anyone under the age of 18 should have an adult, someone in your life, hopefully a parent. You know, I know what it's like to not have a parent who cares what you're doing, but hopefully you have a parent who cares what you're doing and you can get them to listen to the show with you, and or a caregiver or somebody in your life who's an adult who can help you make that decision, you know, whether or not the material is something you should be listening to age appropriately, right? So we'll get right into this. And Talkathon, it's a 24-hour Talkathon. It's from Talk, and that's TAALK, Breaking the Silence That Surrounds Child Sexual Abuse. I did pop the link into the chat room, and that's www.talk.org, Talkathon. And they did this last year. It was the first annual Talkathon, 24-hour Talkathon to end child sexual abuse. And they had so many speakers. I actually tuned in as just a listener, you know, and it was amazing. A lot of these people I've kind of met and, you know, sort of acquainted with because of what I do, advocating here to stop child abuse and, you know, child abuse prevention and whatnot, and a lot of survivors and whatnot, so huge network of people. So some of them I know who they were and sort of been in contact with them, and so many of them I didn't know who they were. And it's a great resource for people. It really is an amazing resource, and I hope people will tune in to November the 19th and 20th. It's 24 hours, so 24-hour Talkathon, and you have to register to listen. So you have to register by email. So you go to that website, www.talk.org, TAALK.org, and click on the link there if you're really interested, and enter your email to register, because there's only so many seats available for each section on Blog Talk Radio. Like, you can only have so many people sitting in your chat room at one time, right? And so what they do is they register people probably first come, first serve. You want to sit in on a certain particular time slot during one of those days, November the 19th or the 20th, you can register and put yourself in there for a spot to be in the chat room, right? And to be able to listen. So the 24-hour talkathon to end child sexual abuse, November the 19th and 20th. There's over 40 speakers, and I happen to be one of them, and that's awesome. That is such an awesome, amazing opportunity and an honor. Diane Cranley and a whole bunch of other people, Svava, and just so many people, Svava Brooks, and there's so many people involved that have done some great work in child abuse prevention, especially child sexual abuse prevention, right? This is what they do. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. There's so many awesome people involved in this. And, there's going to be so many speakers, like, for instance, Diane Cranley, she's a host for the talkathon. She'll be on between 8 and 9 on November the 19th, early in the morning there, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And Svava Brooks and Jeannie McIlvaney, they'll be on in that time slot. And so if you can follow through, if you go to that website, www.talk.org, TAALK.org, and go to Talkathon too, if you scroll down the page, you'll be able to see who the speakers are. And I'm coming on, I believe the 19th. What time will I be on? Let's see. I'm on with a panel of 3, and Ray Luskin is one of them, and also Tom Hunter. So there's 3 of us coming on between 9 and 10 o'clock p.m. November the 19th. And so that's just going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to it. And I know Ray Luskin, she's a friend of mine and fellow advocate, and she's just out here trying to help survivors. And I don't know who Tom Hunter is, but it'll be really nice to meet him. And so what a great thing. I hope you guys will tune into this. This is going to be amazing. And there's so many speakers, just so many. There's over 40. So be sure and check it out, right? These are all, they're either survivors of child sexual abuse, or they work with child sexual abuse survivors, or they've been involved in the Child Protective Services or the law, or, you name it. They will have had something to do with child sexual abuse in their lifetime, as far as being on the end of the human services side, right? So be sure and check it out. It's going to be great stuff. So I just wanted to mention that, and we'll get right into the topic here now. I just really want to talk about that. And I also have 2 great shows coming up here on the weekend. Friday night, what time? 6:30 my time. 6:30 p.m. Friday night. I've got Beverly Cyril coming on the show, and she's from Australia, and she's got a doctorate and a master's, and I mean, she's just really an intelligent woman. She's founded a set of products from her research called Forget Talking Therapy, because it's all based on visualization as well as guided imagery and pictures, using pictures instead of words. And she's done phenomenal amount of hours, really of years of research put into this. And she's just an amazing person. She's really out here trying to help people. She has helped so many people in her lifetime, and in her journey to help survivors or people who have PTSD, DID, mental disorders and whatnot to get better, right? So many of her the people that she works with have been survivors of childhood trauma of some type, right? And so, whether it be child sexual abuse or child abuse or just some type of childhood trauma, right? Just a traumatic event, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be abuse. So I hope that you will tune in, because she's just what an amazing lady, and I'm so glad, and it's just such an honor to have her come on the show. That's Friday night, and then as well, another huge honor, Kate Swift out of the UK coming on Sunday morning to talk about her book, Nobody's Ragdoll, and that's her memoirs and her own personal story of child sexual abuse and incest within her own home that she was forced to endure. And she's a brave lady. She's just like all the other survivors out here talking about this stuff, getting the word out, and not keeping it under the carpet, hidden away, where nobody can see it, because that's what the abusers want. That's what the abusers want, and that's what most of society wants, because nobody wants to see this stuff. It's too perverse. It's too ugly. Guess what? I didn't want to see it. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse and incest, and I tell you, I did not want to be put through that, but I was forced to. And so, people say, well, does that mean that the rest of the world has to know about it? Absolutely. If we're going to stop child sexual abuse and child abuse, period, It needs to be brought out front and center. It needs to stop being hidden away and looked upon as somebody's dirty secret nobody wants to know. Because children are suffering. Children are dying, And I used to pray that I would die. I used to wish for death. I used to tell my mother to go ahead and kill me. I would be like, go ahead and take me out. You'd be doing me a huge favor. Yeah, she wouldn't do it. But it's not that she couldn't have. It's just that she didn't. So here I sit today. And now I'm glad. I'm really glad that she didn't kill me. But for years and years, when I was young, I was just praying for it because I was in so much pain internally and externally. And it's like, so many kids out here will have their heads bashed in tonight. They will die. So many little babies will be, sexually assaulted, raped, and they will die, And I'm just one more voice out here saying, this has got to stop. This has absolutely got to stop. This is everyone's responsibility, whether people want to take it on or not. It's too bad. It is everyone's responsibility. And we as a society as a whole, as the human population here on the planet, owe it to these children, to all children, to protect them. And the people say, well, it should be their own parents to protect them. Yes, but that's true, but they're not doing it. So the child pays the price, and just too bad. Is that the answer? That seems to be the answer. That seems to be the status quo. And, I'm just one more voice to say, what? It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Not at all. And so we need to make changes. We need to make some serious changes and quick, because we could stop this mess. Child sexual abuse, anything, neglect, child abuse, anything like that is all preventable. Because all a person has to do is choose not to abuse that child. I mean, how simple is that? I don't blame the system. I really don't. A lot of people like to blame the system for the issues of child abuse, child sexual abuse, and whatnot. It's not the system's fault. It's the people who are perpetrating the abuse. That's whose fault it is. And they need to stop doing what they're doing. And then we need to get a better system, right? The system is just not working. But it's not the system's fault. It is the abuser's fault. We need to clearly, put the blame where the blame goes. I don't blame the systems because my mother beat the shit out of me and seriously warped my mind and my heart and my spirit and my soul and my whole entire being. I don't blame the system for that. I blame my mother for that. And I don't blame the system because my brother decided to use me sexually and raped and sodomized me when I was 8 years old. And he was 21. No, I don't blame the system for that. That's my brother's responsibility. The actual abusers are who are at fault. Anyone who chooses to abuse a child, that's where the fault lies. But yet the system needs to be revamped. We really need serious change because kids are slipping through the cracks. People are just like, we've had 40 calls for that kid, but it just doesn't seem like it's warrants an investigation, so we're just not going to investigate. I mean, how could you even make a call like that? How could you even make a decision like that? But people do, because they make the wrong decisions, and kids die. And so this is where, I'm just one more voice out here saying, what? We need change. And it has to be all of us to be part of this change, right? And we have to change the way that we feel about children. People need to stop thinking of children as punching bags, and your child is acting up, and they're not behaving the way that you want them to, even though you didn't teach them how to behave properly in the first place. And then you're going to beat that child for that, or you're going to mentally, verbally, psychologically assault your child daily because you did a poor parenting job. That's what a lot of parents do. I've seen it firsthand. I know what parents do to their children, right? And then later on, when that child thinks they're going to kill themselves, the parents is like, well, what did I do? I was just a good parent. It's like, right. That's why you warped and psychologically damaged your child. And there's people out there raping their children, and they'll sit there and say, oh, it's perfectly fine to do this sort of stuff, right? There's a whole section of society that thinks it's okay to use children sexually. And you know what? It's against the law. Thank God. Hallelujah. Like child abuse is against the law. It's a crime. And I am so glad, and I am all for the law. I am 100% pro-law. If I had time to go become a judge and a lawyer and everything else, I would do it. You know what I mean? Time and money. I'm all for the law. And the reason why is because people can't govern themselves. So we need laws and we need government, right? And thank God for it, or we'd be a real mess, right? There's so many people out there that are so anti-government, but without government, we got chaos because people's hearts are not in the right place. We can't even govern our own families, let alone govern a country. So people that are trying to, thinking they're going to do a better job. Really? Okay, think about it. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean there's not problems within the system. That's what I'm saying. The system needs work. But we do need a system because it's obvious that we can't do it ourselves. And just like these kids out here, their parents aren't going to help them. Their parents are killing them, beating on them, burning them, verbally assaulting them all the time, psychological abuse, sexual abuse. And everybody says, well, so that's the parents' fault. So that child should pay the price because it's the parents' fault? I don't think so. I think it's everyone's responsibility, all children. Why should it just be, oh, well, too bad, kid, sorry. But that's the answer. That's the answer. Because there's so many kids slipping through the cracks, so many children that people know a child's being abused and they will do nothing about it, And then 3 months later we see these headlines in the newspaper rolling in. Thank God for the media. Thank God for journalism. Reports saying, well, child's been killed, and there was reports made, but nobody followed up on the reports. So, child's dead. Body bag time. Now that is pathetic and wrong. And whose fault is it? The abusers. The people that hurt and killed and maimed that child. That's whose fault it is. But the system needs to be changed because kids, like I said, kids are slipping through the cracks, right? There are reports being made and nothing's being done, right? And so it is a serious, huge problem, and people think, well, why even bother? It's so huge. How are we going to change it? Well, it won't change with that attitude. I tell you that. It's going to take all of us, and we all, I'm just a voice, just out here speaking out to the conscious of the people, just speaking out to the public domain. It's like, please, somebody, let's do something. I don't have the brains to fix the system, or I'd just go on and do it. I wouldn't be on these shows. You know what I mean? But I know that there's people out there that do, that are just sitting on their behindies, not doing anything, And it's like, come on, if you got the ideas and you got the plans, then why not get busy, right? And, do something, Neighborhood groups, get involved with your neighborhoods, you know what I mean? People, it's just become a very strange society that we live in today. It was even when I was around in the 60s, but when I was growing up as a child, it was still strange, and it still is. I think the whole idea of community is just out the door. And we like to think we have community, but we really don't. And that's why people are on Facebook. Because we don't have any more community. It's got to be an internet community. Because nobody really wants to get involved with anybody, because, oh, well, then we might have to deal with them and we might have to help them. Gee, that's terrible, Yeah, because nobody wants to help anymore, and they don't want to help anybody else's children. So children are dying. That's the fact right there. And if they're not dead, they're just being abused, and later on they're going to pay the consequences, and we will pick up the paycheck for it. Our taxes will, you bet. And the sad thing is I know how hard it is to, 4.5 years ago, to try to stay alive, right? I made a commitment 4.5 years ago that I would not ever plan my suicides again. And I'm glad that I did. Because I've stuck to it, and I don't plan on breaking that commitment for nothing. I'm like a dog with a bone, really. I'm kind of stubborn, so, that's a done deal. But the thing is I know what it's to be sitting on the other side of that, wishing that, there was a way out. I could just, wishing to get out of my pain. No child should ever have to go through that and then have to grow up as an adult and feel like that. And when is this going to stop, when are people going to stop abusing their children and stop abusing other people's children? This just makes me sick, and I'm willing to sit here on and talk about it as much as possible and write as many books as I can, because this is going to stop. Thank God for all the people that came before that had the balls enough to stand up and say stop child abuse. It's a very unpopular thing to say. As soon as you tell people what you do, that you advocate to stop child abuse, you lose a lot of friends. People don't want to even talk to you because they're like, oh God. Now we're going to have to listen to depressing subjects. Oh, forget it. We just want to go to the mall. We just want to shop. I just want to look for my new car. And I can't blame them. And that's fine. You know what I mean? That's fine. Not everybody's going to be wanting to stop child abuse, But I'm just saying, it's a very unpopular thing to do. And you will not have I'm used to being on my own, so I'm not used to having a lot of friends, so I'm fine. But I have some of the best friends in the world, actually, which is great. But the thing is, man, it's a hard road. It really is, because most people, you walk in, you try to advocate to stop child abuse, nobody wants to hear from you. It's like you walk in somewhere and you say, hello, so-and-so, and I'm advocating to stop child abuse, they will kick you out of their store. They'll kick you out of their office. They'll be like, look, I don't got time for that. Bye-bye. You know? And then at the end of the day, they're probably thinking, yeah, you know, those poor kids being abused, and it's like, oh, well, what are we going to do? Right? That's the situation. And so kids, that's why kids are dying. Kids are slipping through the cracks. This is absolutely horrible. I really think that we need a lot more attention brought to it. I really do. And I think that we need a lot more done in schools because it's not happening. It's not happening at home. You know, healthy parent-child relationships just don't exist anymore, I don't think. I mean, there might be a few parents out there that have a good, healthy relationship with their children and bring up these great children. That's wonderful. But the majority, no. It's because somebody else is raising that child, a babysitter, caregiver, some type of daycare, some type of, you know, like somebody else is bringing up the child, and the parents only see their child for a short time in the evening, and then off the child goes to bed, so there's no real parenting involved, you know. And the parents, you know, they don't even know their child, and their child doesn't even know them, you know. It's a bizarre situation nowadays. And the thing is, you don't know what kind of stuff your child's being taught, you know what I mean, by these other people. You don't even know what they're watching half the time when you're at work, and you don't know what these kids are doing, you know what I mean, what these people are doing with your kids. So, you know, your children are picking up all kinds of stuff from other people, right? It may not even be bad parenting. It just could be the fact that you're just around other people that are just, you know, warping them, you know. So then they grow up and they kill their children, right? Because we see these 20, 30-year-olds in the newspaper, women and men. Young, you know, 20-year-olds, you know, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, anywhere around there, 25, sometimes in their 30s, but mainly in their 20s, killing their babies, either beating them to death. Can you imagine beating a toddler to death? Can you imagine yourself doing that to your child or to somebody else's child? Could you imagine? Could you imagine, like, beating a newborn baby to death? People do it all the time. It makes me sick to my stomach. You know what I mean? To think about that. Because how could you even do that? You have to be a sick monster to do that. Like, how could you even conceive to do that? And then sit there in the court stone-faced, you know? Like, they don't care. They don't care if they kill their babies. They really don't. And that is sad and sick and twisted, you know? And, you know, I know I grew up under a mother who was very sadistic. You know what I mean? I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of that, you know? But I don't know what it's like to be on the other end as an abuser. I don't know how people could do that to children. Like, I don't know how people could do that and actually be able to live with themselves. Like, this is really sick and twisted and wrong. And, of course, it's been happening since time began. People say, well, it's been happening since time began. How are we going to change it? Well, we need to change it. Let's just start, right? Like, just now, people are starting to wake up and say, you know what? We got to start talking about this stuff if it's ever going to change. It's kind of like, you know, world peace, or it's kind of like, you know, the state of the world's economy, or let's just say, for instance, the pollution and whatnot. You know, the greenhouse effect, or whatever you want to call that thing. You know, the ozone layer. It's like, well, so we know there's a problem. Let's fix it, right? Well, with child abuse, nobody cares. No, these little babies' lives are totally worthless to most people. People don't care that people are killing their babies and killing their children. People don't care that people are battering and beating their children. They really don't care. You know? It's like, well, it's not my child, it's not my problem. You know what I mean? And that's most people's attitude. And the issue, I guess the reason why it really bothers me is because I know what it's like to be that child. You know, and to be sitting there just knowing that that's your life. And there's no help for you. And you're just going to be stuck in that, you know what I mean? And it's a miserable existence. That's why I started doing drugs when I was 12 years old. PCP and huge heavy-duty drugs, not easy stuff, you know what I mean? I mean, I was a meth addict and a cokehead and everything else by the time I was about 21, you know? And I was ready to kill myself. And when I was 25, I was going to drive my car over the Grand Canyon. I was really devising all kinds of ways to kill myself. And I went to the Grand Canyon for a year and plotted and planned, was, you know, almost every night. Would tonight be the night I'm going to drive my car over the cliff? I don't know. I had a perfect spot picked out and everything. I was like, oh yeah, could be tonight. But I kept stopping myself, kept saying no. And, you know, that's a horrific place to be. You know what I mean? Sitting on a balcony at like 11 o'clock at night, you know your car's down there, and you know you could just drive it over the cliff. something kept me here. The problem is two of my brothers killed themselves. You know what I mean? Well, one of my brothers had killed himself, and the other one was just always overdosing on drugs and sort of half brain dead. And then he finally did kill himself. Suicide just ran in my family, but that's what abuse will do to people. So these little kids out here that survive, I feel sorry for them. I really do, because I know what they're going to go through. I know exactly what they're going to go through, and I know how incredibly hard it really is. How hard it is to get up every day and say, you know what, okay, I'm gonna get through today, I think. And it's so incredibly hard. And people like to minimize this stuff, and they like to make it seem like it's such a joke and like it's no big deal, No, I'll tell you, it's a really big deal. It killed two of my brothers, And my grandmother murdered one of her sons. Like, abuse ran rampant in my family. Abuse kills. If it doesn't kill, if these caregivers and parents or whoever gets a hold of a child, if they don't kill them themselves physically, then that child will not necessarily always, but has the potential to kill themselves. Right? And if they don't just kill themselves by suicide, they'll just self-destruct in every way throughout their lifetime until they get a grip and get some healing done, some real work done, right? And I've just seen just too much of this stuff in my own personal life, And so I know, this is the situation for these kids out here. This is why we have Help Guide. This is why we have Talk. This is why we have all these different organizations, Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. This is why we have, Child Help, right? RAIN, there's so many. I mean, I could just go on and on. This is why these exist. Because child abuse exists, and whether or not we want to admit it and talk about it and even think about it, it's there and it's happening. If you're listening to this show, can you picture yourself being 8 years old and being raped by a 21-year-old man? Well, put yourself in my shoes for about 5 minutes. You know what I mean? This is what people are unwilling to do, is put themselves in these children's shoes out here. Could you imagine being an infant, being raped as an infant? Put yourself in these kids' shoes for a few minutes, and it might make you think about getting involved locally, getting involved nationally, getting involved internationally, but whatever you do, just get involved, and be a voice for these kids out here. Protect your own children, first of all, if you have children. I can't have children because I was raped and sodomized as a child, right? But the sad thing is, that's just the way it goes, and I didn't adopt because I couldn't afford to, because I was always planning to kill myself, right? So it's probably better that I didn't. But the thing is, protect your children, man. They should come first in your life. You have to come first because you have to protect yourself and you have to provide for them. But your children should come along right with you. And a family unit should all be one. And there shouldn't be any of this, oh, well, they're just kids, No. No, they're not just kids. They're precious, precious, precious beings. Beings of light. They have every, they deserve every opportunity, right, to have a good life. And if you, the parent, don't protect them and don't make sure that they're not, make sure that nobody's abusing them, including yourself, your child can have a good life, But 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused under the age of 18. Keep that in mind. If you have 3 kids, chances are one of your kids will be sexually abused under the age of 18. That's the facts right there. So be very, very cautious, and protect your children and protect other people's children when you can. I had a couple of other people in my life who did step in on my behalf and work to try to protect me from my mother, And that was so awesome because it meant a lot to me, and it still does today, So do what you can, to help kids out if you have that capability and you have that, that ability, right, with the means, whether you have money or you have a voice or you can write or you can get involved locally and in your own, child abuse advocacy groups and whatnot. Get out there and get busy. It's very unpopular. You might lose some friends, but do the right thing. We got to help these children out here. We got to do it. We got to do it now because these kids out here tonight, we can't save them. And I don't even think we can save this generation or the next one. Probably not the next 20. But if we can reach these little kids here today, we can possibly in the next 20 generations make a difference, right? So let's all get busy. Thanks a lot, everybody, for being here. Have a great night. I'll be back on tomorrow morning. One child abuse survivor to another. And 6 o'clock a.m., same time, same place. So thanks for being here. Have a great night. Take care. Be safe in all that you do. And we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.